Hello, everyone. Dr. Eames here. This time I'd like to talk about some of the challenges of international management. Uh, First, let's take a look at environmental challenges. And you can see here three categories. We could certainly come up with others, but these are fairly significant ones. And each one has factors within their particular area that are fairly costly to business if you don't pay attention to them. Uh, in the economic environment, of course, we see most countries are moving towards market economies. Even socialist and communist governments are realizing that government run business generally isn't very competitive. And without the ability for citizens to acquire private wealth, to keep the profits of business, to have those incentives with no government competition or interference, um, they're certainly just not going to be successful in international business on the world stage as much as the mature market economies are. And so the economic system does matter, but it also matters whether any given country has the natural resources and infrastructure that you need. Um, so besides the mix of public and privately owned businesses, we ought to have at least some leverage if we've got a natural resource, and countries vary. Um, for example, Japan has little to no resources. The United States has a plethora of wood, minerals, energy, all sorts of resources, technology as well. Um, and then infrastructure, of course. Without infrastructure, you can't do a high level of commerce. So it takes that well developed infrastructure to really have the best opportunities. So we're talking about power plants and railroads and highways and ports, communication systems, airfields, commercial distribution systems, whether or not you have transportation companies that can actually get on the road and compete with each other to move your goods for you if you want to operate in that market. So those things matter as part of the economic environment. The political and legal environment is also really important. You just simply need government stability, and you need a form of government that has as little interference with trade and business as possible. The more instability that you have, the more risk you have. And the more risk and the more uncertainty there is, the less that you're going to find that you're going to get direct investment, and the less successful you're going to be. So government stability certainly matters. And the worst thing that can happen, of course, is an unstable government can get taken over by revolution or a coup, and your business investment could be nationalized. And that's the term for it. They really seize your business, say that it now belongs to the government, and you may or may not get any compensation, usually not, and certainly not what the level of what you invested. And so it matters. Um, it matters if the government is going to give you some possible incentives to invest in their market, in their developing infrastructure. They might offer you a lease on some land for free or very low rate in order to get you to come there and build a factory. Or they may give, on the other side, some tax breaks to home industries to make them survive the competition you might provide. So all sorts of things happen in the political legal environment, trade incentives and your basic international relations of trade and the importing and exporting. How easy is it with any given market in any given country? The controls that the government are enacting really do matter. Um, so we look at the cultural environment as well, because the things that people believe in and their values and their symbols and so forth uh, does matter. It matters quite a lot. And so we see that that is something that we've got to be aware of and make sure we're paying attention to. There are a variety of different controls that governments can put, and I've mentioned tariffs. If a government puts a tariff on a product coming across the border, it's a tariff is on an import. It means the price has just gone up. They've taxed it, and that tax is paid by the person who's buying that good. So if a distributor is importing some coffee beans from another country, and the United States puts a tariff on coffee beans that are imported, then you pay a higher price to get them. And then the distributor has to make a decision. Do they want to pass on that cost to the consumer, or will they absorb it, thinking that maybe it'll go away, or maybe they need to remain competitive, depending on the market. So this is one of those things that we want government to avoid, certainly from the business viewpoint. Quotas now, of course, are limits on how many of any given product can be imported, and it reaches a certain number that's simply cut off. So those are uh, real things that you have to pay attention to, and you don't want to get too much of your business activities and things with quotas, unless you are really have a lot of expertise there. When it comes to these export restraint agreements, it's the other side of the coin. These are some kind of limits that government either imposes or asks you to do voluntarily with things that you're sending or trying to sell in other markets. So these are often voluntary limits on the volume of trade or the type of goods or on the costs that you're charging. Um, and it could involve importing as well, but here we're probably just talking um, about the controls. And so these are direct government interventions. And here we give a little more detail. And this is a summary of what I've been talking about. Tariffs are really taxes on goods that go across national borders. The quotas are limits on those goods, on the number or the value. And then the agreements. Maybe that the government comes up with their own companies and so forth that says that our trade relations depend on us not overdoing it, only ship up to this many of this product, and we'll give you a tax break or something like that. Okay, folks, it's all I wanted to talk about this time. I'll talk to you again soon.